Summer, of course, reported transfer fee of £70 million. Kieran, I don't get it. Do you get it?
Oh, it's a funny one with Havertz, Dan. I hope I'm jinxing myself though when I say this, but when I think about Havertz at first thought and what I've seen of him, he doesn't strike me as a typical Arsenal player. But the thing with Chelsea is that they've just been so bad this season that it's easy to write off all of their players. So I feel that with him and probably a lot of other Chelsea players, it could be a similar situation to kind of what happened with De Bruyne and Salah. They changed their environment and now look at them. It's hard to even remember them, the players that they were when they were at Chelsea. So I just think with him, it will go one way or the other. He'll either go there and we'll see the same Havertz that we saw last season and quite recently, or he becomes a revelation and, we start calling him Kai Bergkamp. You just don't know. Who's going
to call him that?
It's gonna be one or the other. There's gonna be no in between, I think. So of course I hope it's the latter. But yeah, I mean, having a manager like Mikel though will give him the best chance of reaching his full potential. That's for sure. But I don't think he starts when he goes there.
Robert, what is it? Arteta, so obviously Arteta's is involved in this. Like we're all outside going, have you not seen him play for the last 3 or 4 seasons? Because he's got worse and worse. Obviously Chelsea have as well, but he has been at the heart of some of those problems. What has Arteta seen in him that he thinks he can be a big part of this Arsenal side?
I think Mikel Arteta is going to follow what Pep Guardiola has done at Manchester City and play with Zinchenko as coming in and playing into midfield. So they've got 2 holding midfield players, probably with Rice when he signs. And then he'll play 2 players in the inside right and inside left position. And I think Kai Havertz, if he buys him, will be in that inside left position. And Odegaard will be in the inside right. And he'll play with Martinelli down one side, the youngster, Saka down the other side, and then Jesus through the middle. So I think that's where he would see him play. Do I think he's a top-class player? At the moment, I don't think he's a top-class player. I think when he was at Bayer Leverkusen, I never understood what all the fuss was about. He's a player that's got a bit of quality, but does he really dominate games? He's got a bit of pace, but does he really ever show it? He's good in the air, but how often do you see that? He's a player that's going to have to come into the side and hit the ground running. And if he is signed by Arsenal, Mikel Arteta has got to cajole him, get the best out of him. I think there's a player in there, but it's going to be up to Mikel Arteta to get the best out of him and play him in the right position. I don't think he's ever been playing in the right position at Chelsea. He's played right, he's played left, he's played centre forward, he's played in the Bergkamp role. I don't think we'll ever call him Kai Bergkamp, but he'll be playing in that role at some point. So it could be a good signing, I'm not sure.
But that would leave a huge onus on somebody like Declan Rice, who, by the way, I don't think anybody or many people would debate that would be a quality signing.
No, that's why I didn't even ask the question.
Yeah.
What's the point?
But dropping Odegaard a bit deeper with his skill set, I think is a big ask. Xhaka and Partey did it, but they're 2 different components. Right. They're both physical players. If Arsenal were to play the same way as last year, as Kieran was saying, he won't get in the team. He doesn't get in ahead of Martinelli. He doesn't get in ahead of Gabriel Jesus as a striker. And he certainly doesn't get in ahead of Bukayo Saka. Then you start looking at our Arsenal paying 70 million to beef the squad up.
Right.
Which effectively you might say, well, Man City have done that to an extent. They've got Grealish and they've got Mahrez, blah, blah, blah. They've spent this to beef the squad up. If we're going to be competitive, we need to beef the squad up with these players at this price. No, a £70 million player used to be a superstar. We could contend now it could be a squad player. The problem for Arsenal is a big risk with that money because they have been burnt badly in the last 5 to 10 years with heavy prices for players who have basically failed. Kieran mentioned Bergkamp there. I was thinking about Pepe.
Yes.
In from France, 60 million, whatever it was, fancy Dan, all the skill, all the flair. Terrible. And can Arsenal afford to spend this kind of money on somebody potentially who's not a starter and blow a big part of that budget just to beef the squad up? If it had been, and I've said this before, if this had been an Arsenal signing direct from Leverkusen, I think most of us have been sat here quite excited about it. oh yeah, can play across the front line, can play as a striker, can play in behind the striker, is very good in the air, is physically strong. That was the guy that Chelsea signed from Bayer Leverkusen as a youngster. But somewhere along the line, whether it's him and the club, or a bit of everything, he's really lost his way to an extent where Chelsea couldn't score goals.
Yeah.
He couldn't even get a game in a team that had literally no strikers. And now we have Arsenal talking about paying this kind of money for him. It doesn't add up, but it's one that I think it's a left field one that you might sit back and go, well, that was a bit of genius.
Right.
But it has potential to continue down the same road, and the same road that Kai Havertz has been going down in the last... And I know he scored in the Champions League final. You don't need to throw that at me. But there's 38 games a season, plus domestic competitions, plus European competitions. It's not about one game. If Havertz continues on that pathway in the same kind of form, it'll be a gigantic waste of time for Arsenal. And that's a big risk.
Kieran, does the starting 11 that Robbo put up make sense to you?
Show me again.
The starting 11 that Robbo put up.
Show me.
It's
You're not
Zinchenko
paying
coming into
attention,
midfield.
Kieran.
It's
What are you
not quite
doing?
right.
No. I wanted to see who he had at like right back and.
Well, that's a given.
So Zinchenko would come infield with Rice. The players of midfield are holding.
Yeah, that's
to,
how he would do it.
Man City,
Yeah, that's how he would do it. Yeah, that's how he would do it. But does Havertz even? Does he say that he's that position? I would like him to come out and say what his preferred position is, because I feel that we deserve to know what position that he wants to play and what his favourite position is. And I think
You can imagine there would have been a conversation between him and Arteta before this deal's done, surely.
Oh yeah, for sure. But and that's what I'm saying. Mikel and Edu, like the way they've gone about their business in the last 2 years, you have to think that they've seen something that we all haven't, and that's the only thing that I can think of that as to why this signing is, especially at 70 million. I mean, but as Craig says, it's like the way that the prices are going now, you're using 70 million on one player just to beef up your squad a little bit. So. But I would like to see 70 million spent, or at least trying to look in other areas, in other leagues, at other players over Kai Havertz.
The one thing I would say, though, is, a couple of years ago, I think we were all questioning Mikel Arteta. His backside was on the hot seat big time, and fair play to him and the club. They outed some of the dead wood and the troublemakers, and they got some fresh blood in. They got some youngsters coming through. Made some good signings, sent Salah to France for a year's loan, was Young Player of the Year, came back ready to go back in there. Ben White's shift to right back was a success. Zinchenko signing was a success. Jesus was a success up until the injury. That's no fault of his own. So I think the one thing we can say is that the Arsenal board at least should have some trust in Arteta's decision-making. If this is the path he's taking them down with Edu at the moment, I think it's hard to argue that they know what they're doing and they know what they want to go into this team after what we saw last year. Yeah,